Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about an amazing panel that was held at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo 2 in January of 2025, and it was a panel on working for TSR in of course, the company that created Dungeons and Dragons in the 1990s, and it featured Scott Douglas. And so Scott Douglas is, of course, a historic RPG designer, and he was there, and the panel was very accessible, and we were able to just ask questions right to them. So I did. So I said to Scott Douglas, I was like, "Hey, could you please tell me a personal story of time that you spent with Lorraine Williams, right?" Because yeah, and that was it. That was all I said, right? So Scott Douglas jumps in and he says, "Sure," and he tells this story. He said, we were, so this was in the 90s, and we were going around the country, and a lot of our events were for charity. We would play, and then people would play Dungeons and Dragons, and we would receive money, right? And there were thousands of players coming out to conventions, and they would, put up money to play in a Dungeons and Dragons game, and then that money would come right back to TSR, and TSR would distribute it out to children's charities, right? And there was, you know, a lot of money came in this way, and I don't know if certainly tens of thousands. He didn't say the amount. I'm guessing it was well, he did give an indication that it was well into the tens of thousands. And during the 90s, it was probably hundreds of thousands, maybe even low millions, right? But he told the story of how they went to one of the conventions in the Midwest, and they were playing all week, right? And it was a big convention, and there were thousands and thousands of dollars coming in, and these conventions were just one right after the other, right? And so they got jammed up, and they weren't able to set up the normal amount of coverage that they would, and all the, they weren't able to cross every T and dot every I, right? So what ended up happening was these convention the convention hosts were taking in thousands of dollars every day, right? And and then giving it to Scott Douglas and one other employee there at TSR at the end of every day, right? And then what they were doing is they were taking this cash back, right? And they were just putting it into the hotel safe, right? And then at the last end of the week, I think he said that they had two separate amounts, 8,000 and 7,000. They brought $15,000 of cash back to TSR, right? And then they turned it over, right? And the moment they turned it over, accounting was like, "What the heck? Why on earth are you bringing, $15,000 cash back to the office, right?" And they're like, "You screwed up, man." And so at this point, Scott Douglas got called in. He got called on the carpet, literally, right? Like, and they said, "Hey, and the accountants were like, 'You did this all wrong, right? T should have been dotted, I should have been crossed.'" Now, Scott Douglas is like, this was an explosive time. There was, Dungeons and Dragons was growing like a wildfire, right? And it was, there's just organic, explosive growth. And the only reason they didn't do it, by the numbers, was just they were going from convention to convention to convention, right? And so he said, so Lorraine Williams, so he is told by, Lorraine's secretary, go up to, or actually I think he was told by the accounting, go to Lorraine's office at this time. And so he's like really scared and upset, right? And so he goes to Lorraine's office, and he tells her the whole story. And then, she thinks about it, and then she stands up. And he said, "I thought she was going to fire me. I thought she was standing up to say, pack your bags, pack your box, and take your sad self into your sad car and drive to your sad home," right? He thought it was done, right? He thought he was cooked in the book, right? He said what she did was she stood up and she said, "It's $15,000, and next time you're going to do it the right way, but that's a ton of money that was raised for these kids. That's a ton of money. Every cent of it came back, and I really appreciate what you've done, and I want to thank you." And so he had to stand up and shake her hand. and he said he said, Scott Douglas said, Lorraine Williams was extremely good at business. She knew that aspect. And he told this story that she was able to look over the red tape and see the bigger picture, and that she spoke to him with respect and kindness. And and this is the kind of story that cuts back against all these character assassinations that have been printed on the academic and the historic side in books like Ben Riggs' Slaying the Dragon. Pure junk, in my humble opinion. Just the most outrageous garbage. Should never been printed, in my humble opinion. It's just, I just really don't like, and he admitted it. He said he begged Lorraine Williams to talk to her, and she's like, I'm not going to let another, like, middle-aged white guy do a hit piece on me. Like, she would not have it, right? Like, and she refused him, right? And I'm paraphrasing what she said to him, but she's like, heck no, I'm not talking to you. I'm not doing this again, right? I'm not having another middle-aged white guy come up to here to write in there that I was a bad businesswoman and I was stupid. I'm not going to have it again, right? And it's pretty incredible. And so I just loved hearing the truth about Lorraine, that she was a good businesswoman. She was kind. She was smart. She could see the bigger picture, and that she had a personal heart, and that she was willing to help not just her employees, but even beyond her employees, and that under her care, Dungeons and Dragons went in the right direction. So, I did my part. I went to Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. I talked to the people who were there, and if you listen, they're saying that Lorraine Williams was a good woman, and I believe they're telling the truth. That what we now know is we're sitting on a mountain of success from Dungeons and Dragons because Lorraine Williams fixed every single problem that Gary Gygax created by trying to do the creative and the commercial by himself, which he was incapable of, and lost control of himself in the mid 1980s. And Lorraine Williams, a fantastic business lady that Gary Gygax handpicked himself, okay, fixed every problem he ever created and stabilized Dungeons and Dragons and built value into it so it could be sold for a very fair price to Peter Adkinson, who would take it the next leg of D&D's journey. Lorraine Williams was extremely important in the health of Dungeons and Dragons from 1986 to 1997, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard in this video was my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking, subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.